I planned a surprise anniversary trip for my husband. His mistress was already there waiting for him. My name is Nadia Hasan and I'm 36 years old. I spent 3 weeks planning the perfect anniversary surprise. Booked a cabin in the Smoky Mountains, the same place we'd honeymooned 9 years ago. Coordinated with his assistant to clear his schedule. Packed his bag without him knowing. Drove 4 hours with a blindfold in my lap and a speech in my heart about how much I still loved him after everything. When I pulled up to the cabin and saw a second car in the driveway, a white Kia I didn't recognize, I told myself it was probably a rental mix-up. I told myself that for exactly 3 minutes. Then I walked through the front door and found his mistress unpacking her suitcase in the bedroom where I lost my virginity to the man I married. She'd been there since Friday. He wasn't supposed to arrive until Saturday. He had sent her ahead. Let me take you back to November 2023, to our 9th anniversary, and the moment I realized I had been the only one trying to save a marriage that my husband had already left. Just without telling me. Rayan and I met in graduate school. University of Michigan, 2010. He was studying finance. I was finishing my MBA. We dated for 2 years, got engaged at the same coffee shop where we'd had our first date, married in a small ceremony in 2014 with 60 people and a cake I'd decorated myself. We were good together. Not perfect, but genuinely good. He worked hard. I worked harder. We bought a house in 2017. Talked about kids. Put it off. Talked about it again. Put it off again. Built careers. Built routines. Built a life that looked from the outside exactly like what we'd planned for. But something had been shifting. Slowly. The way water erodes stone. Not in a moment but across years. Invisibly. Until one day you look and the shape of things is completely different. By 2022, he was waking late more often. Weekends sometimes. Travel for client meetings had picked up. He'd always traveled, but now it was nearly every other week. I told myself it was a promotion year. He was up for senior partner. I told myself a lot of things. The distance was real, though. I felt it in small ways. He stopped reaching for my hand in restaurants. Stopped asking about my day with any genuine curiosity. He was present but absent, the physical version of him occupying our home while the actual version of him was somewhere else entirely. I brought it up in March 2023. Are we okay? I asked one Sunday morning over coffee. He looked up from his phone. What? Us. Are we okay? You feel far away. He set the phone down, reached across the table and covered my hand with his. I've been stressed about the promotion. I'm sorry. I'll do better. I don't need you to do better. I just need to know we're in this together. We are, he said. Always. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. So when our 9th anniversary came around in November, I decided to fight for us. Not with a conversation. With action. With the kind of grand romantic gesture that said, I see you. I choose you. I'm not giving up on us. I'd been saving $3,200 for 8 months. A little from each paycheck. Moved quietly into a separate account. I found the same cabin management company that had handled our honeymoon rental. The original cabin was booked, but they had a nearly identical one. Same porch, same mountain view, same fireplace. I booked it for 3 nights. I called his assistant, Jen, who had always liked me. Told her it was a surprise anniversary trip and asked her to quietly block Thursday through Sunday on his calendar as a client trip. She was delighted. He's going to love this, she said. I bought his favorite bourbon. Ordered the same brand of coffee he'd been obsessed with that month. Packed hiking boots. The novel he'd been meaning to finish. A framed photo of us from our honeymoon that I'd had reprinted. I wrote him a card. I spent 2 hours on that card. I wrote about the coffee shop where we met. About the night he proposed. About how I knew our marriage had drifted and how I wanted to paddle back to each other. About choosing him. Again. On purpose. I sealed it and tucked it into the front pocket of his overnight bag. Thursday morning I woke him up early. Get dressed, I said, smiling. We're going somewhere. He blinked at me, confused. Sat up. What? I have. Your schedule is clear. I cleared it. Get dressed. Something moved across his face. Too fast for me to name it. Where are we going? It's a surprise. Trust me. He hesitated. 1 beat too long. Okay, he said. Give me 20 minutes. I made coffee, loaded the car, waited in the driveway with the engine running, buzzing with nervous excitement, the same feeling I'd had the morning of our wedding. He came outside, got in, looked at the bags in the back seat. You packed for both of us. I've been planning this for 3 weeks. He was quiet for a moment. Nadia. Please don't ruin the surprise, I said. He faced forward, didn't say anything else. I drove 4 hours south. We talked the way people talk on long drives, surface things, podcast recommendations, a funny story from my office. He was pleasant, attentive, even. I told myself this was it. This was us finding our way back. About 30 minutes from the cabin, I pulled out the blindfold. Absolutely not, he said. Absolutely yes, I said. He laughed. Actually laughed. Put it on. I drove the last stretch grinning to myself. Turned onto the mountain road. Gravel crunching. Trees closing in on both sides. I pulled into the driveway. Heard the second car before I saw it. A white Kia Sportage parked close to the cabin porch. I stayed at it. Are we here? Rayan asked, reaching for the blindfold. Hold on, I said. My voice sounded normal. My brain was doing rapid calculations. Rental company error. Wrong cabin. Previous guests who hadn't checked out. Maintenance crew. I got out of the car. Walked to the front door. It was unlocked. I pushed it open. The cabin smelled like perfume I didn't own. A coat was hung by the door. Women's. Fitted camel wool. On the kitchen counter, a bottle of wine. 2 glasses. A grocery bag with items already unpacked beside it. I walked to the bedroom door. It was slightly open. A woman was standing at the foot of the bed, lifting a folded sweater from a suitcase. She was maybe 30. Dark hair. Pretty in a composed, effortless way. She looked up. We stared at each other. We stared at each other. She knew who I was immediately. I could see it. The recognition. The calculation. The decision about what to do next. All happening in her face in about 2 seconds. You must be Nadia, she said. The ground moved. Who are you? She straightened. Set the sweater down. My name is Layla. Why are you in this cabin? She tilted her head slightly, not unkind, almost careful. I think you should ask your husband that. I heard the car door behind me. Ryan's footsteps on the porch. The creak of the front door. Nadia, what's going on? The door was. He stopped when he saw me, looked past me, saw Layla in the doorway of the bedroom. And his face didn't show shock. It showed dread. Not the dread of a man who has just discovered something terrible. The dread of a man who knew this moment was coming and had dreaded it. Rayan. My voice was very quiet. What is she doing here? He set his jaw. Said nothing. What is she doing here? Nadia. Tell me right now. He looked at the floor. The wall. Some middle distance where he didn't have to look at either of us. And Layla spoke. He told me this cabin was free this weekend, she said. Her voice was steady. Not cruel. But honest in a way that was worse than cruelty. He books it sometimes. Through a friend of his at the management company. He booked it for us for this weekend, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I repeated. I've been here since yesterday. He told me he'd arrive Saturday morning. I turned to look at my husband. You sent her here first. He opened his mouth. Closed it. You sent her to our honeymoon cabin 2 weeks ago, while I was busy planning this for 3 weeks. I gestured at the car, at the bags, at the whole wrecked landscape of the last 3 hours. How long? He looked at Layla, a flicker of something, asking her something silently. She looked away from him. How long, Rayan? 2 years, he said. The word hit me the way I imagine physical impact does. Not sharp but spreading, a warmth that became pain by degrees. 2 years. He had been with her for 2 years. For 2 years I had been reading distance as stress. I had been interpreting his absence as ambition. I had been saving up $3,200 and writing 2-hour cards to a man who had already, quietly, started an entirely separate life. Were you ever going to tell me? He ran his hand over his face. I was figuring it out. Figuring out what? Exactly. Whether to leave. Whether to keep both of us. It's complicated. It is not complicated, I said. It is the least complicated thing in the world. You were with both of us at the same time. There is no complexity there. There is just a choice. He said nothing. I looked at Layla. I don't know why. Maybe because she was the only person in the room capable of honesty. Did you know he was married? Yes, she said. From the beginning? Yes. And you're okay with that? She paused. I'm in love with him. She said it simply. No apology. No shame. I almost respected it. Almost. Get out, I said to Rayan. Nadia. I drove 4 hours to surprise you. I packed your bag. I wrote you a card. My voice cracked on the word card, and I hated it. I hated that my voice cracked on something so small when the whole world was cracking. Get out of this cabin. I paid for it. He looked like he was going to argue. I have the booking confirmation on my phone, I said. Get out, or I call the management company and the police, and I tell them exactly what is happening here. He left. He walked out the front door, got in the car I had driven here, and left. I stood in the cabin. Layla was still in the bedroom doorway. We looked at each other for a long moment. I'll go, she said. I'll get my things. Wait, I said. I don't know why I said it. She stopped. How did you meet him? She studied me for a moment, deciding, I think, whether kindness or honesty was more useful here. She chose honesty. Work function, she said. 2.5 years ago. I knew he was married. He told me early on that things were difficult at home, that you two had grown apart. Did he tell you we were trying to fix it? Something moved in her face. No. Did he tell you I asked him directly in March if we were okay? No. Did he tell you I'd been saving for this trip for 8 months? She closed her eyes. Just for a second. No. I sat down on the couch. The same style of couch as our honeymoon cabin, overstuffed, plaid, mountain lodge generic. I had loved it then. I had told Rayan it felt like being held. He let me save for this trip, I said. For 8 months. While he was booking this cabin with you. She didn't answer. There was nothing to say. She gathered her things in 20 minutes. Folded that camel coat back over her arm. Picked up her suitcase and the grocery bag. At the door she stopped. I'm sorry, she said. I don't expect that to mean anything. But I am. She left. I sat in the cabin alone. I sat there for a very long time. At some point it got dark. I turned on the fireplace. Found the bottle of bourbon I'd packed and poured some into one of Layla's wine glasses because I couldn't find the ones I'd packed. I read the card I'd written Rayan. I read every word of it. Then I set it on fire in the fireplace. I watched it burn. I stayed all 3 nights. Alone. In the mountains. In the cabin I'd paid for with 8 months of quiet hope. I hiked both days. Made coffee on the little porch. Finished a book. Cried once, long and completely, on the second morning, and then didn't cry again. On the drive home I called a divorce attorney. Her name was Patricia. She had the brisk, warm efficiency of a woman who had seen every version of this situation. What do you have? She asked. 9 years of marriage. A jointly owned house. My income is higher than his. I'm a director at my company. He's a finance partner. Assets. Retirement accounts. Joint savings. The house. Children. No. Okay. I could hear her writing. Any documentation of the affair. I met her in person. She told me directly. He confirmed. Text messages, emails, anything written. I'll look. I looked. His phone was still linked to our shared iPad. He'd never changed it. For 2 years he had carried on an entire second relationship and never thought to unlink his iMessages from the device sitting on our kitchen counter. I found 3 years of texts with Layla. I found the cabin booking. I found the texts where he'd told her to go ahead Friday. I'll be there Saturday. My wife has no idea. I found the texts where he'd discussed our marriage, dismissively, clinically, as a problem to be managed rather than a partnership to be honored. I found one exchange from September, 2 months earlier, when Layla had asked him, "Are you ever going to tell her?" And he had replied, "When the timing is right." The timing. I forwarded everything to Patricia. She was quiet for a moment after I sent it. Then she called back. "This is comprehensive," she said. "I know. In most states this doesn't affect asset division, but it affects negotiating position." "I don't want negotiating position," I said. "I want the house." She paused. "Tell me more." I told her more. The house was mine. Practically, historically, emotionally mine. I had managed the purchase. I had overseen the renovation. I had maintained it, the repairs, the bills, the insurance. Rayan had occupied it. His name was on the deed. But my fingerprints were on every wall. That's a fight, Patricia said. I know. Start it. The divorce took 11 months. He contested the house. His lawyer was expensive and combative and said things in depositions that I still can't repeat without my jaw tightening. But we had the texts. And we had the financial records showing the affair-related expenses, the cabin bookings, the dinners, the weekend trips to cities he'd told me were client meetings. Over 2 years, $31,000 spent on a relationship he'd hidden while I was putting money aside, quietly, carefully, $200 a paycheck. His own financial records became his undoing. The settlement was finalized in October 2024. I got the house. He got a payment plan. Layla had ended things with him in January. I found out through a mutual colleague who told me with the particular awkward sympathy of someone who doesn't know how much information to give. Apparently she hadn't known the full picture. The full picture, once she saw it, changed things. I felt nothing about that either. Oh, I tried to. The truth is I felt something. Not satisfaction. It was softer than that. More like the feeling you get when a long storm finally breaks and the air is just clean. I'm in the house now. In the living room I repainted myself in March. A color called dried sage that Rayan had vetoed twice. It looks exactly right. I started therapy in December, not because I was falling apart, but because I'd spent a decade being someone's partner and I needed to remember who I was before that. What I wanted. What I liked. What I was like when I wasn't holding space for someone else's ambiguity. My therapist is a woman named Dr. Osei. In our 4th session she asked me, is there any part of you that saw this coming? I sat with that for a long time. Yes, I said finally. There was a part of me that knew, that had been knowing for a while. What did you do with that part? I saved money for a surprise trip, I said. She didn't say anything, but her expression said something. Something gentle and a little heartbroken on my behalf. I kept choosing him, I continued, even when part of me knew he'd already chosen someone else. I kept choosing him because I believed love was supposed to be a decision you made every day, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. And now, I thought about the cabin, the fireplace, the card burning. Now I think love is supposed to be a decision both people make, I said. Not one person deciding every day while the other person quietly opts out. Here is what I know now, sitting in my sage green living room with my name on the deed and 2 years of therapy receipts. Loyalty is not love. Effort is not enough when you're the only one making it. And the saddest thing about being betrayed by someone you chose is not the betrayal itself. It's the realization of how long you were choosing someone who had already, quietly, thoroughly, chosen differently. I spent 9 years loving Rayan well. I spend the next chapter loving myself better. I burned the card in the fireplace because it deserved to go somewhere warm. But I kept the mountains. I go back every November now. Alone. Or sometimes with a friend. Or my sister. Or whoever wants to see the leaves. And every time I drive that gravel road and hear the crunch under the tires, I think of myself at 36, sitting on that plaid couch with a glass of wine I poured into a stranger's glass, watching the words I'd written for someone else turn to ash. And I think I am glad I went. Not because of what I found there, because of who I found there. Sitting alone in the firelight. Still whole. Still standing. Still mine. If you've ever kept choosing someone who had already stopped choosing you back, type still standing in the comments. Because it is not weakness that kept you there. It was love. And love is the most human thing there is.